The jungle of Verdunine was always quiet before a storm. Ethan knew that. He had been on this alien planet for over a month now, mapping the area for future human settlements. But even after all this time, the jungle still made him feel like an outsider. It wasn't just the tall glowing trees, or the strange purple mist that hugged the ground. It was the way the jungle watched, like it had eyes hidden behind every leaf, waiting that morning. Ethan was walking along a narrow path, scanning for minerals with his wrist tool. His drone floated above, beeping softly. Suddenly, the sound of rustling leaves caught his attention. He paused. The sound was low, soft, not threatening. It didn't sound like a predator. It sounded scared. He stepped off the path carefully, moving toward the sound. There, under the thick roots of a twisted alien tree, he saw something small, curled up in the mud, shaking and barely breathing. It was a cub no bigger than a small dog. Its fur was silver and black, striped like a tiger. But the skin beneath was reptilian. Its ribs showed through the thin skin, and its eyes, big golden eyes, were full of fear. Ethan's heart sank. This cub was starving. He looked around, wondering where its mother was, but the jungle was silent again. Watching, the drone spoke in a soft tone. Warning, unknown species. Potential danger. Ethan ignored it. The cub didn't look dangerous. It looked abandoned. He crouched slowly, reaching into his pack. He had a few ration bars left. He broke one in half and gently placed it on the ground, sliding it toward the cub. At first, the cub didn't move. Then, with shaky legs, it crawled forward and sniffed the bar. It licked it once, then again, and then within seconds, it was eating like it hadn't eaten in days. Ethan watched, amazed. There was something innocent about the way it chewed. Messy and quick. Easy, he whispered. Take your time. But the cub didn't listen. It finished the food in seconds, then looked up at him. Their eyes met. And for a moment, the jungle seemed to hold its breath. Then, without a sound, the cub turned and ran back into the shadows of the trees. Gone. Ethan stood up slowly, brushing dirt from his knees. He stared into the forest where the cub had vanished. Something didn't feel right. He felt like he was being watched closely, but there was nothing in sight, just trees, vines, and silence. The drone hovered beside him. Species scanned. Minor feline reptilian hybrid. DNA structure unknown. Great, Ethan muttered. I just fed a mystery animal. As he returned to his camp, his mind couldn't let go of the cub. Why was it alone? Where was the mother? Was it really abandoned, or was it bait? That night, the jungle felt different. He sat by his small campfire, reading old messages from Earth. But every few minutes, he would look up. He thought he heard movement, not loud but steady, deliberate. Then, around midnight, the firelight flickered. The wind had changed. It was warmer, heavier, carrying a strange scent, wild and musky. His drone suddenly beeped. Alert! Large life form approaching. Ethan stood, grabbing his light blade. The jungle trees rustled ahead of him. Branches moved as something big pushed through. And then he saw them, two golden eyes glowing in the dark, not small like the cub's. Larger, deeper, filled with intelligence and something else, something primal. A massive shape stepped into the light. It was her, stripes across her tall, powerful body, sharp claws at her side, and long white fangs peeking from her lips. She was not just an animal, she was majestic, terrifying, and strangely beautiful. She looked at him, then slowly. She smiled, and in that moment, Ethan realized he hadn't just fed a hungry cub. He had called its mother. Ethan froze. The creature standing just beyond the firelight was massive, almost 8 feet tall, with thick striped fur that shimmered under the moonlight. Her golden eyes never blinked, watching him as if trying to read his soul. The wind blew gently, carrying her scent wild, rich, like fresh earth mixed with danger. His heart pounded in his chest. He wasn't trained for this. He was an explorer, not a soldier. The light blade in his hand suddenly felt useless. The drone at his side gave a soft alarm. Warning, unknown apex predator detected. Ethan didn't move. He remembered the cub's eyes, the same golden color. This had to be the mother, and he had fed her child. She stepped forward, claws clicking gently on the stone ground. Her body was powerful, built like a tigress but with the grace of a dancer. She wore a collar around her neck, sleek and dark, humming with faint energy. Ethan guessed it was a translator. At least he hoped so. "You," her voice came through the collar. Low and smooth. "You fed my cub." Ethan nodded slowly. "I didn't want it to die," he said softly. The alien mother tilted her head, studying him. She walked in a slow circle around the campfire. Never taking her eyes off him, Ethan turned with her. Never showing his back, her movements were elegant, controlled. But he knew she could strike in less than a second. "The others leave my kind to starve," she said, her voice a mix of pride and pain. "But you gave food." He tried to stay calm. "I didn't think, I just saw it needed help." She stopped in front of him now, just a few feet away, even standing straight. He had to look up at her face, the flames reflected in her eyes, making them glow like fire. "You're not like the others," she said, her lips curled into something like a smile, but it was strange. Animal-like, sharp, it sent a shiver down Ethan's back. "I'm Ethan," he said carefully. "I don't want trouble." She sniffed the air around him. Her nose hovered close to his neck. Chest, shoulder. He felt her warm breath like a heavy wind across his skin. "I am Shikari," she said. "Hunter of the Black Moons, mother of 5. He didn't know what to say, so he nodded again. "Nice to meet you," he said. His voice shaking just slightly, Shikari chuckled a low, throaty sound that rumbled in her chest. "I came to see the creature brave or foolish enough to touch my bloodline." The jungle behind her remained silent. Even the night bugs and flying things had gone quiet. Ethan swallowed. "I didn't know," he said. "I just wanted to help." Shikari stepped even closer. Her claw reached out, not to harm, but to gently touch his chest. She pressed against his uniform, right over his heart. It wasn't a threat. It felt more like a test. "You fed a cub," she said again. "That means something." Ethan didn't understand what it meant to her, but he didn't argue. He simply asked, "Is the cub okay?" Her gaze softened just slightly. "He ate." "He lives," she replied. "Thanks to you." There was a long pause. Then, to Ethan's surprise, she sat down near the fire. The flame light danced across her fur, making her look like a living statue carved from shadows and light. "You will join me," she said. "Come to the den. See the ones you helped." Ethan blinked. "Now?" "Now," she answered, her tone final. The drone beeped again, warning of danger, but Ethan raised a hand, silencing it. His instincts said no, but something deeper. Something in his chest said go. She could have killed him already if she wanted. Instead, she was inviting him. With slow, cautious steps, Ethan followed Shikari into the jungle. She didn't look back. She walked ahead like she owned the world. Tail swaying, stripes blending into the trees. The jungle path twisted and turned, lit only by bioluminescent plants. Strange animal sounds echoed through the night, but nothing came close, not while she walked. After nearly an hour of silent walking, they reached a cave hidden behind a waterfall. She stepped aside and motioned him in. Ethan entered, nervous, unsure, inside. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and he saw them more cubs, some small, some bigger. And in the corner, curled up and safe, was the same little cub he had fed. It looked up, saw him, and wagged its small tail once. Shikari walked beside him and spoke. "Tonight, you are not prey," she said. "You are guest." And in that moment, Ethan realized he had crossed a line no other human ever had. Ethan sat on a warm stone near the cave wall. He could still hear the gentle roar of the waterfall outside. Inside the den, everything smelled different, earthy, smoky, wild. The soft blue light from the cave crystals glowed gently on the fur of the alien cubs as they slept together in a pile. The same little one he had fed earlier now curled near his foot, watching him with sleepy eyes. Across from him, Shikari stood tall beside a fire pit. She was roasting a large alien beast. On a spit made of black bone, the smell was strange, but not bad spiced, maybe sweet. He watched her closely, still not sure if he was safe or simply being kept alive for later. She moved like no creature he had ever seen. Strong, slow, graceful. Everything she did was full of meaning, like a ritual. She turned the meat, licked her claw, and then looked at him over the flames. "You're quiet, human," she said. "Are you afraid?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Not exactly," he said. "I'm trying to understand where I am and why I'm not dead yet." Shikari gave that deep, throaty chuckle again. "Fair," she said. "Most who wander into my den don't leave breathing." "Comforting," Ethan replied, dryly. The little cub beside him yawned, showing tiny sharp teeth, then rested its head on his boot. He looked down, surprised. Shikari noticed and tilted her head. "He chose you," she said. "He smells your kindness." "I just gave him food," Ethan said. "That's not special." "To us," she answered, "it is everything." She tore a piece of the cooked meat with her claw, placed it on a flat stone, and walked toward him. Her steps echoed. Light but firm, she handed him the meat, watching closely as he accepted it. Ethan took a bite, hot, smoky, tender. It wasn't like anything on earth, but it wasn't bad either. "Do you feed all your guests?" he asked, trying to stay calm. Shikari knelt down beside the fire, resting on one knee. "Only those I don't plan to kill," she said with a smile. Ethan's heart skipped again. But she didn't move to harm him. She just looked into the fire. "I've hunted many humans," she said, voice soft. "Most came to take from this world, minerals, plants, blood." Her claws tapped the stone beside her. "But you gave something." Ethan looked at the sleeping cubs. "Do your kind always live like this?" he asked. "Alone in caves?" Shikari's eyes narrowed. "We are not beasts," she said. "We are the Kinari. We live in clans, raise our young, honor our dead." She glanced at him. "Just because we are strong doesn't mean we don't feel." He felt a sudden twist in his chest. "Sorry," he said. "I didn't mean to judge." She nodded slowly, then reached toward his face, not to strike, but to gently touch his hair. "This is soft," she said. "Strange." Ethan flinched a little but let her touch. Her claw grazed his cheek, and her eyes met his again. There was no hate there, only curiosity. "Why did you come here?" she asked. "Why this planet?" "I'm just a scout," Ethan said. "Sent to mark safe zones for future human landings." "More humans will come?" "Yes." Shikari stood again, walking slowly back to the fire. She stared into the flames, her tail moving behind her. "Then we will have war," she said. "They will not feed our cubs." "Ethan, they will bring fire and steel." Ethan didn't answer. He knew she was right. He had seen how his people talked about alien life hostile until proven useful. He hated that. "I don't want war," he said. Shikari looked over her shoulder. "Then prove there is another way." Her voice was firm, but not angry. It was a challenge. The cub at his feet yawned again, then climbed into his lap and purred. Ethan smiled, gently petting its head. Shikari saw the moment, and something shifted in her face. "You care," she whispered. "You are not prey." Ethan looked up. "What am I then?" She stared at him for a long moment. Then she said, slowly, "Not prey. Maybe something more." And with that, she turned and disappeared into the back of the cave, leaving Ethan alone with the sleeping cubs. The fading fire, and a heart full of questions he didn't yet know how to answer. Asterisk. The fire had burned low, only soft red embers glowed in the stone pit. The cave was quiet now, except for the gentle breathing of sleeping cubs and the distant sound of water falling outside. Ethan sat alone, his back resting against the cool wall. The small cub still curled up on his lap. He couldn't sleep, not with everything running through his head. He had fed a wild alien cub, met its mother, who could kill him with one swipe, and now he was sitting in her home. Safe, somehow, respected maybe. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, But something told him this was more than just a lucky night. As he stroked the cub's soft fur, his mind drifted to Earth. To the people who sent him here, they wouldn't understand this moment. They would see Shikari as a threat. They would never see her as a mother, a protector, or something more. A sound echoed from the back of the cave. Ethan looked up, alert. It was Shikari, stepping out from the shadows, but this time she wore something different. Her tall figure was wrapped in a glowing cloth made of silken threads, shifting colors like starlight. Her eyes reflected the cave light, fierce and calm at the same time. She wasn't just a warrior now, she looked like a queen. "You're still awake," she said, her voice soft. "Hard to sleep," Ethan replied. "Too many thoughts." She walked over and sat near him, close but not touching. The cub in his lap purred and stretched, then rolled onto its back with tiny paws in the air. Shikari smiled, a real smile this time, not the wild, sharp one from before. "He likes you," she said. "He doesn't do that for many. I think he just likes warm humans." Ethan joked, but her smile remained. "Maybe," she said, "but maybe you are more than just warm." He looked at her, studying her eyes. "Why did you let me live, Shikari?" he asked. "You've hunted humans before." "You could have killed me." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached out a single clawed finger and gently touched the cub's belly. The little one squirmed and squeaked, then settled again. "When I smelled your touch on my son, I expected weakness," she said, "or poison, or fear." Her gaze turned to him. "But I smelled care." Ethan didn't speak. Shikari continued. "In our history, no outsider has ever touched a canary cub and walked away. Not because of anger, but because of instinct. We are a proud species, Ethan, and we do not forgive strangers touching what is ours." "Then why did you forgive me?" he asked again. This time, her answer came with a slow breath. "Because my heart told me to wait," she whispered. "I saw something in your act, something rare, even among my own kind." She looked down at her own clawed hand, then slowly turned it over. "For years, I have ruled with these claws," she said. "Fought, killed, protected, but never shared." Ethan hesitated, then did something unexpected. He reached out and gently took her hand. Her muscles tensed immediately. Even the cub opened its eyes, sensing the tension. But she didn't pull away. Her claws twitched, then stilled. His hand looked small compared to hers, soft skin against rough fur and hardened pads. "No one touches me," she whispered, not angrily but surprised. "You are the first. Do you want me to stop?" he asked, softly. She looked at their hands, joined like night and dawn, then shook her head. "No," she said, "not tonight." They sat like that for a long moment. No words, just silence. A strange connection passed between them, like heat through cold stone. Not romance, not yet, but something that felt even more dangerous: trust. "I never thought I would say this," she said at last, "but I'm glad you found my cub." "I'm glad he found me," Ethan replied. She gently pulled her hand back, standing tall again. "You should rest," she said. "Tomorrow my clan will hear of you." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Will they welcome me the same way you did?" Her eyes narrowed. "Some will," she said, "but others will see you as a threat to their pride." "Then I guess I better sleep while I still can," he joked. Shikari turned to leave, but paused at the edge of the shadow. She looked back, her voice soft. "Don't let them change you, Ethan," she said. "You are already something rare." And with that, she vanished into the back of the cave. Ethan leaned back against the stone wall. The cub pressed close, purring softly. He stared at the ceiling, wide-eyed. He had touched the untouchable. And for the first time since arriving on this planet, he didn't feel alone. Morning on Verda 9 looked nothing like Earth. The jungle woke up with glowing leaves, chirping crystal-winged insects, and mist that danced through the trees like silent smoke. Ethan stepped out of the cave with the little cub walking close to his heel. His body was tired, but his mind was alert. Today felt different. Something was coming. He could feel it in his bones. Shikari was already outside. Standing tall on a stone ledge, watching the horizon, the wind blew through her striped fur, and her tail swayed behind her like a slow rhythm. She looked like a queen preparing for war. Ethan cleared his throat as he walked up to her. "Morning," he said. Shikari turned slightly, nodding. "You rested well?" "About as well as anyone can when sleeping inside the home of a giant alien hunter," he replied, trying to smile. She gave a short chuckle, then looked back into the trees. "They're coming," she said. "Who?" Ethan asked. "My bloodkin." She said, "My warriors, my sisters, my rivals." Ethan stepped closer, feeling the tension in the air. "Are they happy that I'm here?" Shikari's golden eyes met his. "No," she said, simply. "To them, a human feeding a cub is not a gift. It is weakness. It is shame." Ethan frowned. "But I didn't do anything wrong." "Exactly," she said. "You showed kindness where they were taught to show teeth." There was a long silence. Then Shikari walked forward, claws clicking softly on the stone. "Come," she said. "You must be marked." "Marked?" Ethan asked, raising an eyebrow. "Like a tattoo?" "No," she said. "Something older. Something deeper." She led him to a nearby clearing, where a circle of smooth stones surrounded a shallow pool of glowing water. The pool shimmered with soft green and gold light, like a mirror made of stars. Shikari stepped into the pool first, her strong legs half submerged. She turned to Ethan and pointed. "Remove your outer layer," she said. "Only skin must touch the water." Ethan hesitated, then removed his jacket and shirt. The jungle air felt cool on his skin as he stepped into the pool. The water was warm, like sunlight, and it tingled against his feet. Shikari reached down and pulled a small vial from her belt. Inside was a golden oil that seemed to glow on its own. "This is scent oil," she said, "made from my blood, and the flowers that grow only beside death." Ethan blinked, unsure if he liked that description. "And you're going to put that on me?" "Yes," she said, "because if you are not claimed by scent, the others will see you as a threat or prey." She poured the oil into her palm and stepped forward. Ethan stood still as her warm hand touched his chest. She smeared the oil across his skin, shoulder, neck, collarbone. It smelled sharp, earthy, and something else, something that made his heart beat faster. Her hand lingered a moment longer than needed. Then she stepped back, eyes locked on his. "It is done," she said. "You are now marked as mine." Ethan's mouth went dry. "Yours?" he repeated. She tilted her head. "In Kinari law, no one may harm one who wears the scent of a matriarch," she explained. "It means I protect you. And more than that, it means I accept you." "Accept me for what?" he asked, voice low. Shikari stepped closer. "As more than prey," she said. "As more than guest." Before Ethan could answer, the trees behind them rustled. Shikari turned sharply, her claws flexing. A group of Kinari warriors stepped out, tall, striped, proud and fierce. Some wore bone armor. Others carried curved weapons that shimmered in the light. One of them, slightly smaller but with eyes just as sharp, stepped forward. Her gaze landed on Ethan immediately. "What is this, sister?" she growled. "A human in the sacred pool?" Shikari didn't blink. "He fed my cub," she said. "He showed heart. I have marked him." The others looked at each other in disbelief. One warrior snarled, "A human? Claimed by the matriarch? This is madness." Ethan stood tall, saying nothing. He could feel their eyes judging him, burning into his skin. But Shikari stepped in front of him, tail high. "I decide who belongs," she said firmly. "And he belongs." Silence fell across the clearing, and then slowly, the warriors lowered their weapons, but not their anger. Shikari turned to Ethan and whispered, "Stay close to me." And so he did, because now, whether he liked it or not, he had been marked not just by scent, but by her Shikari, the predator queen of the jungle, and there was no going back. The jungle was not quiet anymore. Birds with glass wings flew away as the Kinari warriors roared and shouted. Tension filled the trees like smoke. Some warriors accepted Ethan's presence in silence, but many growled. Whispers moved fast. The human is marked. The matriarch chose prey. It is dishonor. Shikari stood tall in the center of the camp clearing, surrounded by her bloodkin. Ethan stood beside her, bare-chested, her scent oil still warm on his skin. But even with her protection, he felt their hatred. Their glares were sharp like blades. One warrior stepped forward, a male with one broken fang and a deep scar across his neck. He pointed a claw at Ethan. "If he truly belongs," he growled, "let him survive the trial." Shikari narrowed her eyes. "It is not needed," she said. "He has already proven." But the warrior interrupted her. "He is not Kinari. He is soft. Let the jungle decide his worth." The others shouted in agreement. Ethan felt his heart drop. "What's the trial?" he whispered. Shikari looked at him with regret in her golden eyes. "It is a test of survival," she said. "Quietly, you must enter the Bloodwoods alone. No weapons, no tools, only instinct." "For how long?" he asked. "Until the moon's rise," she answered. "One full cycle, if you live. They will accept you." Ethan took a deep breath. "And if I don't?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. He looked around at the faces hostile, waiting. They didn't want him to succeed. They wanted a reason to prove Shikari wrong. They wanted him to die. "All right," Ethan said, his voice steady. "I'll do it." Shikari turned to him sharply. "You don't have to. I do," he said. "Not just for them, for me. I need to earn it." Shikari's jaw tightened. She stepped forward and placed her hand on his shoulder. "Then you go with my strength," she said, "and return to me." She leaned close, her voice a whisper. "Come back, Ethan, please." The warriors formed a circle. And then, with no more words, Ethan stepped into the jungle. The Bloodwoods were darker than any place he had seen. The trees were red and black, their bark covered in sharp thorns. Strange vines reached out like fingers. Every step was a risk. Every sound could be death. He walked carefully, trying to remember the survival training from Earth. But this wasn't Earth. The animals were bigger, the plants alive in ways he didn't understand. And the air felt heavy, like it didn't want him there. By midday, his legs were scratched and his stomach was empty. He found some fruit hanging from a vine, but the smell was wrong. The drone would have told him if it was safe, but he had no drone now, so he walked on, hungry, tired, and alone. Then he heard it, a sharp yelp. It wasn't far. He followed the sound, pushing through thick leaves. And there it was, one of Shikari's cubs. Not the little one, but an older one. Maybe a sibling. It had fallen into a pit trap, sharp bones sticking out like teeth. Its leg was cut and bleeding, eyes wide with panic. Ethan didn't think. He jumped into the pit, ignoring the pain as thorns scraped his back. The cub hissed in fear, trying to crawl away. "Easy," he whispered. "I'm here to help." He tore off part of his shirt and wrapped it around the bleeding leg. Then, using a thick vine, he climbed out with the cub in his arms. It was heavy, but he didn't stop. He carried it for over an hour, searching for shelter, as the moons began to rise. Ethan finally reached a high rock ledge. There, he laid the cub down and sat beside it. Both of them breathing hard, both wounded, but alive. The jungle howled around them, but nothing attacked. The scent of blood should have drawn predators. But none came, and then, just before the last moon rose above the trees, he heard footsteps. Shikari appeared silent and fast. Her eyes fell on the cub, then on Ethan. She rushed forward, checked her cub's leg, and growled low. Then she looked at Ethan. "You carried him?" He nodded, barely able to sit up. "I couldn't leave him." Her eyes softened. She touched his chest gently. "You passed the trial," she said. The other warriors arrived behind her. They saw the wounded cub, the human covered in mud and blood, and they said nothing, because now even they couldn't deny it. The human had done what even some of them would not. He risked everything for one of their own. Shikari stood tall beside him. "He is not just a guest," she said. He is Kinari, and he is mine. Ethan didn't speak. He just smiled, because finally, he had earned his place. The next morning, the sun rose through the glowing trees, bathing the jungle in soft gold and green. Ethan stood beside Shikari at the edge of the Kinari cliffs. Below them, the jungle stretched for miles. Above them, the sky was wide and quiet. He had survived the trial. He had saved one of her cubs. He had faced the bloodwoods with nothing but his bare hands and stubborn heart. Now the Kinari watched him not with hate, but with something close to respect. Shikari placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did what even some of my warriors would not," she said. "You risked your life for one who could not return the favor." Ethan looked at her, tired but proud. "I didn't do it for honor," he said. "I did it because it was the right thing to do." She smiled, slow and proud. "And that is why you are more Kinari than many born here." Later that day, the Kinari held a fire circle in the heart of the jungle. It was rare, only done during sacred times. Ethan was told to stand in the center as the warriors gathered around. Drums made of tree hide began to beat, deep and steady. Firelight danced across faces painted in red clay. Shikari stepped forward, dressed in full warrior queen robes, dark silk and bright feathers braided into her mane. She lifted a curved blade high into the air, then pointed it toward Ethan. "In the eyes of the jungle," she said, voice strong, "in the presence of the ancestors, I name this one not prey, not visitor, but Kinari." A cheer rose around the circle, some proud, some uncertain, but none dared object. Then she added, her voice softer, "And I name him mine." The crowd fell silent. Ethan looked at her, surprised. Shikari stepped toward him, her eyes glowing with warmth. "You could return to your kind," she said quietly. "You could leave this world and never come back." "I could," Ethan said, "but I won't." She tilted her head. "Why?" He reached out and gently took her hand. "Because my people never made me feel like I mattered," he said. "But your cub did. You did." For a moment, the world held its breath. Then Shikari pulled him close, wrapping him in her arms, strong, warm, safe. That night, the stars shone brighter than usual. The cubs danced around the fire, and the warriors drank from carved horns. Ethan sat beside Shikari on a stone throne made from old bones and soft leaves. "You are one of us now," she whispered to him. "But never forget who you are." "I won't," he replied. "But I'm not just Ethan anymore. I'm something else now. Something better," she said as the night went on. More Kinari came to him, not with weapons, but with questions. They wanted to know about Earth, about humans, about kindness. He shared stories, and in return, they shared theirs. Two worlds, beginning to understand each other. Days passed, then weeks. Ethan became more than just the human who survived. He became a teacher, a bridge, a symbol. He helped the Kinari learn how to use scanners, how to build without harming the jungle, and they taught him how to track beasts, how to read wind, how to fight with honor. But every night ended the same, sitting beside Shikari, talking, laughing, sometimes in silence, sometimes just watching the cubs sleep. And slowly, what started as respect became something deeper. One evening, as the sky turned purple with sunset, Ethan looked at her and asked, "Do you ever regret it? Choosing me?" Shikari didn't answer at first. Then she leaned forward, pressed her forehead gently to his. "I do not regret breathing," she whispered. "I do not regret living. And I do not regret you," he smiled. "Even if I still smell like human?" She chuckled. "You smell like mine." 1 year later, when the next scout ship from Earth arrived, Ethan was not waiting with a signal. He was not requesting rescue. He was standing at the edge of the jungle, watching. From the shadows, he saw the humans armed, cautious, curious. He could have stepped forward, explained everything. But he didn't. Not yet. He turned back toward the jungle, where Shikari waited, where the cubs played, where his heart now lived. Because Ethan had made his choice. He had fed a starving cub, and in return, found a fierce, beautiful queen. and a place where he belonged not just as a visitor, but as one of them, forever.